The 15th Finance Commission has become a steamy affair with the southern states or many of the southern states on the warpath. The most contentious issue is one of the terms of reference of the Commission, which states that the devolution of funds from the centre to the states should be made on the basis of the 2011 census. The southern states, barring Tamil Nadu, are irked because the total share of the southern states in the country's population has fallen from 22% in 1971 to 18% in 2011. So the states are irked that simply because they have been effective in the implementation of family planning programs, they appear to be punished by getting a smaller part of the central pool. The Prime Minister today, of course, specifically defended the terms of these terms of reference, saying that the government has asked the Commission to actually incentivize states that have worked to control population. Let's hear out what the Prime Minister said.
A baseless allegation is being made about the terms of reference of the 15th Finance Commission. The Indian government has suggested to the Finance Commission to consider insensitivizing states who have worked on population control. By this yardstick, a state like Tamil Nadu, which has devoted a lot of effort, energy and resources towards population control, would certainly benefit.
Okay, that's as clear as it gets. But joining us to discuss the terms of reference in detail is Dr. Abhijit Sen. He's a member of the 14th Finance Commission. Dr. Sen, thank you very much. We should be having some state finance ministers joining us in a bit. But what is your sense, sir? By putting in that word 2011 census be followed, is the centre being unfair to the states who have worked well on population control?
I think the date of the 2011 from 1971, it's important, but I think it's a relatively minor part of what I think is the problem with the 15th Finance Commission TOR.
Okay.
TORs of finance commissions in the past have really been very neutral. It's not the centre telling the Finance Commission, you look at this from our point of view. It's those matters the centre can raise with a Finance Commission in a memorandum, just as states can do.
Okay.
But the TOR should be above both the centre and the state and treat them, in an equal way.
Okay.
As far as the date, the calendar year is concerned, this is a matter which is important, but it's not just the southern states. It's 10 states in the country have a lower population ratio in 2011 compared to 1971, and they include Punjab, Assam, West Bengal and Odisha.
Okay.
Okay, so those are fairly major states.
Yes.
Which are, and so it's, don't make it just a north-south issue.
Okay.
And don't just make it a one TOR issue.
All right.
I think there are major issues in the whole thing.
Yeah, we have other issues to discuss with you, but the person who made this complaint is also with us, Dr. Sen, so do stay on. Mr. Thomas Isaac, the Finance Minister of the state of Kerala, has joined us. Mr. Thomas Isaac, we just played the Prime Minister's soundbite saying that one of the terms of reference of the Finance Commission is also that states which have worked well on population control be incentivized. So what is your problem then? 2011 is one term of reference, but there is very quite clearly one of the terms of reference saying that states which have worked on population be incentivized. So you should not be badly off, Mr. Isaac.
Oh, that's a big joke. The joke is,
which is
91% of the total award of the Finance Commission is on the basis of tax devolution.
Okay.
And the entire this 91% is based upon 2011 population.
Okay.
While the incentives that the PM is speaking about are 9 in number, and at most the allocation would be, say, 2 to 3% of the total award of the Finance Commission.
Okay.
If you go by the earlier awards.
Okay.
And therefore, it can never, even in the distant dream, compensate for the loss that is made in the tax devolution. Loss in the tax devolution. That's the answer.
I take your point, but let me put the same thing to Dr. Abhijit Sen, who was a member of the 14th Finance Commission. Dr. Sen, I'm coming to the other contentious issues in a bit, but just on this population issue, your commission said that it will distribute, I think, 17.5% weightage of the tax sharing will be on the 71 census, and 10% weightage was given to the 2011 census. So is it that it is the Finance Commission's own discretion what to choose? Even if this is in the TOR, can the 15th Commission say that we will take 50% weightage from 2011 and 50% to 1971? Can they do that?
Yes, it is constitutionally within the powers of the Commission to do anything it wants.
Okay.
Except it can't ignore terms of references. And we therefore gave a certain weight, a 10% weight, for the 2011 census. And actually, just to make the point that Mr. Isaac just made, it's not just 17.5 for 1971.
Okay.
And 10% for 2011.
Okay.
50% of the entire, other things are scaled by the 71 population.
Okay.
So the entire, income distance criteria also involves the population.
Okay. But do you buy what Mr. Isaac is...
71 population.
Yeah, Mr. Isaac says... I take your point, sir, but Mr. Isaac is also pointing out that the Prime Minister's defense is not good enough because 91% of the money will be distributed on the basis of the 2011 census, and what the Prime Minister is talking about incentivizing states that are have done well on population, those clauses actually cover only 9% of the money. Is that right?
No, again, the point is what happens. Is it 91%, this percent, that percent?
Okay.
Is to the discretion of the Finance Commission.
Oh.
And that is true also of the Prime Minister saying that they will look at the incentive. Come along. I mean, the Finance Commission is a constitutional body. The Constitutional gives it two things to do. One is the devolution and the other is grants. And it is up to the Finance Commission to decide what that devolution parameters are.
Okay.
The present terms of reference go beyond past terms of reference in trying to push the Finance Commission into doing a particular thing. And that's true about 1971 census. It's true about the incentives for this or that.
Okay. So if Mr. Isaac were to go and make a very strong pitch to the Finance Commission that he would want half the money to be given on the 71 basis, can the Finance Commission agree to Mr. Isaac, or will it be bound by what the terms say, Dr. Sen?
They are not bound by anything, but it entirely depends upon what they in their wisdom want to do.
Okay.
But a Finance Commission is going to be judged on the basis of how much has it gone by terms of reference rather than by a fair and even consultation between the states and the center.
Okay. Well, Mr. Isaac, that certainly opens a door of hope for states like yours. You can convince the Finance Commission to do otherwise. And after all, the previous commission also was not told about 1971 or 2011. They did it in their own wisdom. Does that give you some confidence that the Finance Commission can still be fair to you?
Now, in the 14th Finance Commission,
Just a second.
1971
We were told
was
1971 census.
All right, all right.
But then there was also supposed
What's stated?
that they had to take into
Okay,
consideration
Dr. Sen, I'm just coming
the
to you.
demographic changes that occurred thereafter.
Yes, yes.
And in taking into consideration that consideration, they decided
Yes.
a particular weightage 10% would be based upon 2011 population base.
Yes.
Now, my take on this terms of reference is that if they are not bound by that, then it loses. Why do you have terms of reference at all?
Okay.
With the constitutional, there are three things assigned to the Finance Commission. It's enough to repeat that.
Okay.
In fact, that is repeated in every terms of reference.
Okay.
Then they go on to give the detail. Now, what Abhijit said is true. Things which Center should have represented to the Commission in their memorandum, they are trying to pressurize the Commission by putting in the terms of reference.
Yeah.
For example, we fear it's just not population issue.
Yeah.
There are many, much more than that. For terms of references, many intonations, reading between the lines, it's very clear they're trying to pressurize.
Which one, sir? Which one are you saying? Which
For
one is...
example, start reviewing the 14th Finance Commission award.
Yes.
42%.
Yes.
How it has affected Center, blah, blah, blah. When
Yes,
everybody
yes.
sensible knows that 32 and 42 are not comparable. 32 only non-plan revenue was taken into consideration. 42 includes normal plan fund also.
Yeah.
And also they had done away with the discretionary grants. Everybody knows it.
Yes.
And
yes.
this common knowledge is converted to us as something very problem for centers that then they are asked to review. Likewise, I can give a number of instances where pressure is being put on the Finance Commission to reduce
Yes.
vertical devolution.
Okay.
So that's a matter which is paramount importance to all states.
Okay.
Secondly, there are in many places in the TOR where they are egging the Commission to impose more stringent conditionalities, telling to determine what are populist programs and
Yes,
so on
yes.
and so forth. Conditionalities on borrowing, conditionalities on tax devolution itself. These are unheard of things.
Okay.
Therefore, they are undermining the fundamental principles of Indian federalism.
Okay.
And these are our objections.
Okay.
And these also should be addressed.
Okay. No, I take your point entirely. There is a phrase that says control or lack of it in incurring expenditure on populist measures. Hardly a statement you would expect the government to tell the Finance Commission. But let me get Dr. Sen's view on it. Dr. Sen, let me go one by one. Isaac has raised the point about a kind of problem that the Centre is making of the 14th Finance Commission's recommendation. I'll just quote what Isaac is saying. The impact of the fiscal situation of the Union government of substantially enhanced tax devolution to states following recommendations of the 14th Finance Commission, blah, 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 it goes on. Do you think that was unfair to state that, as Thomas Isaac says, everyone knows that it was the centrally sponsored schemes money that went into, and therefore 42% did not necessarily mean more money. In any case, is that an unfair statement to put in the terms of reference?
It is unfair or not, I don't know. It is certainly unprecedented for a terms of reference to refer to a previous Finance Commission's decision and say, look at that. It basically says, please revise it. I think that was something which has not been there before.
Okay.
And second, I think it is much more than that.
Okay.
It's not just the issue about populist schemes. Other terms of reference list a huge number of schemes to be monitored and incentivized. Now you can't incentivize and monitor the devolution.
Yes.
The devolution is a constitutional obligation for the Centre.
Okay.
You can monitor and incentivize grants, but you can't give a higher grant to make it monitorable at all or to have any incentive value unless you cut the devolution.
Okay.
So there is a pattern to this. The pattern is that please cut down on the devolution, increase the grants and make them conditional. If that is the intention of the central government, it's not the constitutionally that should be the major agenda it puts forward in its memorandum to the Finance Commission.
Yeah, well, actually...
the Finance Commission, TOR, should not contain all of this.
Okay. Well, actually,
and
Vivek...
I hope that the Finance Commission makes up its mind on its own.
Yeah. Actually, Vivek Debroy is trying to answer this from a constitutional point of view by saying
that
its own. I take your point, sir. I take your point.
Yeah.
Vivek Debroy is arguing the contrary in an article today in one of the papers, saying that actually it was the 14th Finance Commission which misunderstood clauses 280 and 282 of the Constitution. But we are in legal ground over here. I'll have to do one thing. I will have to take a break. But Mr. Thomas, Mr. Isaac and Dr. Sen, do stay on. I'm back in a jiffy. Back in a jiffy, sir. Back in a jiffy.